Today, we will have a brief introduction of the new Growatt 3-phase C&I battery-ready energy storage system installation. The core parts of the whole system are MID1130 KTL3 XH battery-ready inverter and APX HV battery system. There are 8 models in the MID XH series from 11 kilowatts to 30 kilowatts. The lithium battery we used in this video is APX HV battery system. APX battery uses the material of cobalt-free lithium iron phosphate to guarantee its excellent safety. Offering flexible capacity options for customers, each battery module is 5 kWh. A cluster of batteries supports 1 to 6 pieces. Up to 2 clusters of APX HV batteries can be connected in parallel in the C&I energy storage system, with a maximum capacity of 60 kWh and a maximum charge and discharge power of 30 kilowatts. Support remote firmware upgrade to save on-site maintenance fee. The whole system is easy installation with stacked modular design. When combined with an SYN box optional, the entire system has power backup function. The whole system supports double power supply function. An MID 15 KTL3 XH inverter can provide 15 kilowatts full power AC output, plus 15 kilowatts full power battery charge capacity. Before installation, we need to prepare the required tools. The operating environment is so important that it will influence the lifespan of the MID XH. So please don't expose the MID XH to the environment of sunshine, rain and snow. To ensure the machine can run properly and easy to operate, please provide adequate space for MID XH. Install the inverter vertically or at a maximum back tilt of 15 degrees. Do not install the inverter at a front tilt, horizontally, or upside down. First, unpacking the MID XH package and check whether the unit has damaged or missing parts. If it happens, please contact the supplier. There are some connection ports including DC switch for solar input, battery input ports, PV input ports, USB port for the monitoring accessory and firmware upgrade, COM port for communication of battery system, smart meter and backup box, and DRM's function of Australia models or power control interface of European models. AC grid connection port. Drill holes in the wall as shown in the diagram for inverter installation. Please use a level to ensure that the wall mount remains level. Due to the heavy weight of the inverter, 2 people will need to work together for installation. Notice: when drilling holes in the wall, avoid the water pipes and power cables. Please prepare the cables before the electrical connection. Notice: please make sure that all switches are off. For safety reason, no work should be done on energized electrical circuits. Do not use aluminum wires as the output cables. Make sure the PV switch is off. Cram the OT terminal on the PE cable as shown in the figure. Connect the grounding connector, which is at the right side of the MID XH inverter. Notice: make sure that the protective ground wire is reliably connected, as failure to connect or loosening may result in a risk of electric shock. Do not connect the end wire to the chassis as a protective ground wire, as this may result in a risk of electric shock. Route the 5 wires PE, N, L1, L2, L3 wires through the AC protective cover. Crimp the ring or spade terminals. Then connect them to the screw terminals on the AC connector. Secure the protective cover onto the inverter and tighten the screw on the protective cover. Notice: do not pass the crimped OT cable directly through the rubber liner, as this may damage the rubber liner. The MID1120 KTL3XH inverters have 4 independent PV inputs, while the MID25-30 KTL3XH inverters have 6 PV inputs. When installing the PV modules, please note that the PV modules in each PV string should be of the same specifications and model. PV strings connected in parallel to the same MPPT shall have the same number of PV modules in its series. Connect the DC wires to the positive and negative terminals as shown in the figure, leaving 8 to 10 mm of internal wire at the front of the PV connection cable. Insert the PV cable into the terminal and use the plier to press the terminal firmly and make sure that the cable cannot be unplugged. Insert the cable with a metal terminal into the corresponding connector until it clicks. Tighten the locking nut with a spanner. When the spanner slips during tightening, the locking nut is tightened. Measure with a meter to make sure the cable polarity is correct. Warning: use the H4 positive and negative metal terminals and DC connectors supplied with the inverter. The use of other incompatible positive and negative metal terminals and DC connectors may result in serious consequences, and damage to the equipment is not covered by the warranty. Notice: it is not recommended to use hard cables such as armored cables for DC input cables to avoid venting stress on the cables, which may cause poor contact with the terminals. Limit: max PV voltage 1,100 volts. Consider the lowest temperature. Max PV input current per string 16 amperes. Max PV input power per string 10 kilowatts. The MID1130 KTL3XH 3-phase inverters feature 2 independent battery inputs. The battery power cables and communication cable are inside the cable package of the APX95034P2 power module. Insert battery positive, negative, and neutral cables into the relative battery terminal of MID-XH inverter. Communication between 2 clusters of batteries using a network cable connection. Limit: max battery voltage 950 volts. Max battery charge and discharge power 30 kilowatts. Here is the communication connector for the COM port. The definition of each port is shown in the table. Following the number label to connect the battery communication cable with the connector. The communication cables, usually they are network cables between the inverter and the meter, and between the inverter and the SYM box, have to be prepared by the user. Cut off the 2 terminals of the network cable to reveal 8 cables, whose colors are shown in the picture. For the SYM communication cable, you need to keep the green, green-white, brown, and brown-white cables and set aside 8 to 10 mm of the inner wire and cut off the other 4 cables. For the Growatt smart meter connection cable, you need to keep the blue-white and orange-white cables and set aside 8 to 10 mm of the inner wire and cut off the other 6 cables. Take out the red terminals from the inverter kit, put them on the wires, and use gripping pliers to press the terminals tightly to make sure the wires don't come off the terminals. Connect the communication cable from the Growatt smart meter and SYM box to the communication connector. Thread cables through pressure screw, seal ring, thread a sleeve in sequence. Remove the cover from the terminal. Finally, connect the communication connector to the COM port of MID-XH inverter. Connect the L1, L2, L3 of the grid to port 10 and 9, port 8 and 7, port 6 and 5 of the Growatt smart meter through the CT meter. Notice, please make sure that the white cable is to CT plus and the black cable is to CT minus. Please make sure that when connecting the CT to the AC input line, the direction of the CT is the same as the direction of the current. Connect the port 11, port 12, port 13, port 14, port 15 of the smart meter to L1, L2, L3 end line of the load and ground cable of the switch box. Notice, it is recommended to use 16 to 22 AWG cables for wiring. Connect the port 1 of the smart meter to port 5 of MID-XH communication connector. Connect the port 3 of the smart meter to port 6 of MID-XH communication connector.